I started playing Fate Extella the Umbral Star just a couple of months ago. I thought it would be a good idea to play it before Fate Extella Link came out, so I'd be more familiar with the gameplay and the story. To summarize my thoughts on Umbral Star, the gameplay is fun, but the story is really hard to follow. I've got pretty much the same views on the sequel, although it does improve on every aspect of the first game. Whenever I record a review, I follow a standard structure of having an intro paragraph with my summarized thoughts, and then I talk about the story. I find it quite hard to talk about the story for Link because, like Umbral Star, it's kinda nonsensical at times. If I've understood the setup right, then most of humanity has abandoned Earth and they live in a computer program on the moon. You are the ruler of the program, and within it are warrior servants based on famous historical figures that you direct to fight and protect the program from computer viruses that manifest as evil warriors. I think that's the simplest way to summarize my understanding of what's happening. In this game, an evil figure, Rex Magnus, is attacking the world to take over it, and you send your team to go and beat him back. You have all the servants from the previous game and 10 new ones, including Charlemagne, who is one of the stars of the game. I tried to follow the story, but at times I was a bit lost, especially with the random names and phrases that get thrown into sentences. Having said that, it made a lot more sense than Umbral Star, which lost me within the first few minutes. Just taking the game as a straightforward, bad guy that needs to be stopped plot, it was fine. There was one interesting twist in the story that I thought worked, and then there were a couple of other revelations that seemed like they should be big deals, but I wasn't really sure why. Maybe it's my lack of understanding of the plot to Umbral Star, and admittedly I was skipping cutscenes in that game that prevented me from fully appreciating the plot to Link. I thought it was fine though. I liked the characters, but like the plot, it wasn't groundbreaking, just okay. The cutscenes weren't overly long. They were far longer and got in the way of the gameplay much more in Umbral Star. The gameplay follows a typical Dynasty Warrior style setup. You control one of these servants and are dropped onto a map with connected rooms full of villains. You need to defeat the generals, called aggressors or shadow servants, in these rooms to take over that area, and then you can proceed to the next room. The objectives aren't always just defeat the bad guys. You may need to protect the ruler, escort other heroes around the map, or destroy key objects. There can also be time limits to complete objectives, which adds some pressure to not linger on fighting the foot soldier enemies. The battle system is a lot of fun. You've got the usual jump, dodge, light attack, heavy attack, but there's also a lot of special moves that can be equipped between levels, and that have a cooldown timer before you can use them again. The timers were probably a bit too generous, because I found that I could pretty much cycle between my 4 special moves constantly without needing to execute many normal attacks. I played the game on normal and found it a bit too easy. Like I said, I just kept using my special attacks and the enemies couldn't do much to me. The minor enemies were pretty much useless. I could just stand still and they wouldn't attack me. They were totally irrelevant anyway, since you need to kill the aggressors on screen to take over an area. I did take hits from these guys, but they again weren't much of a problem. The bosses, which were other servants working for Rex Magnus, posed much more challenge, and their fights were much more interesting, especially later in the game when they started blocking attacks and posing more of a challenge. Alongside the special moves, you also fill up a blue gauge at the bottom left corner, and when full you can activate a powered up state. While in this state, enemies are even easier to kill, and you fill up a golden gauge while powered up. When the golden gauge is full, you can unleash a super powerful area attack, which kills pretty much every enemy around you. Even bosses could lose around half their health when you do the area attack. All this is to say that there are lots of ways to kill enemies, and knowing how to use them makes the game a bit too easy. I tried a couple of levels on hard and the game felt much better balanced. I would recommend starting out on normal to get a handle on the game and its controls, and then moving up to hard to make the game more interesting. Normally when I play a Dynasty Warrior style game I get bored quite quickly, as they tend to be quite repetitive. I didn't find myself getting bored with Fate Extella Link. The combat was enjoyable and levels could be quite short at times, varying from 5 to 15 minutes in general, and the objectives can change a few times in each level, so I didn't really have time to get bored. In Umbral Star there were some risque or romantic cutscenes between levels, as your bond grows with a female servant. This has been totally removed for Link. I'm fine with this personally. I didn't think it added anything to the game in Link. Between levels you have a small courtyard to walk around and can go into 3 different buildings. Your room allows you to customize the servants and change up their abilities. The servants' barracks can be entered to talk to them, although the conversations are pretty limited and don't add much. And the strategy room is where you're set up for the next mission. The courtyard was kind of irrelevant. You could fast travel to any of the buildings by pressing start, and wandering around the courtyard having one-line conversations with servants didn't really add much to the game. It's a nice touch and doesn't spoil anything, it's just lacking in usefulness. Despite large numbers of enemies on screen, I didn't get any slowdown at any time, and the graphics look great on the Vita screen. It's a big and noticeable step up from Umbral Star. There are moments when my hero on the screen was getting lost in all the flashes of attack animations, and the quick camera movements from locked-on targets, but generally the game looked really good. There are 3 endings in Fate Extella Link. You choose the next mission based on branching paths, and after clearing the first 2 endings you unlock the final path of missions. One disappointing aspect was that the final boss was the same for all 3 endings. I had hoped we'd see something different each time. The final ending did change things up a bit, but I wanted a bit more variety and incentive to play each story path, especially since the story itself was not a huge driver in making me play. Finishing all 3 story paths took around 7 to 8 hours, which wasn't that long, but there are a lot of extra battles to play through, with the difficulty significantly increased, and you can play the story mode on hard and very hard. Getting the platinum is not a short process. Overall, Fate Extella Link was very enjoyable. The story was okay, but the gameplay was fun and kept me playing to the end. At the time of writing this review, I tried a couple of the optional missions, and I can see myself playing more in future. Fate Extella Link is better than Umbral Star, and it's better than the first Dynasty Warrior game released on Vita. I haven't played the others, so I can't comment on them. Link is also probably going to be the last 3D action game on Vita. It's sad to say those words, but at least the genre is going out on a positive note. So guys, are you planning to pick up Fate Extella Link? And if you played Umbral Star, what did you think of it? Leave a comment below, and as always, thanks for watching.